What inspired me to give my talk about TDD with Petri Nets? Good question. Actually, we are doing some major redesign of the Cucumber internals, which involves some distributed programming, parallel programming, and also multiple different languages and components and agents and stuff. So there's a protocol being designed. How do you design a protocol? And I remembered something I learned in uni, 25 years ago, called Petri Nets, which is a formal specification language, which is very graphical. So that was what made me start to look into it again. I hope they'll take away that just because you are a young, modern, agile software craftsman or craftswoman, it doesn't mean that you should drop all design. I just saw an excellent talk by Simon Brown with the hashtag, what is it? Just enough design or something like that. And I think what I want them to take away is that it's not bad to sit down and do a little bit of design up front, as long as you do that all the time, and as long as it doesn't completely consume you. Changes in focus in the software industry, it's changing so fast, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. Obviously, the rise of JavaScript and everything that's happening in the JavaScript community is a big change. TypeScript is coming, Kotlin's coming. That's more on the language front. And then you've got things like GraphQL, which everybody seems to be raving about, and I don't quite understand why that's so great. Maybe in some cases, I don't know. It's really hard to pinpoint one thing. Everything just changes all the time. So how people communicate on software projects, I like to believe that's changing. At least, there's more and more organizations that I've been working with who've come to us to ask for help. How can we help business and IT communicate better, to have an aligned vision, have a shared understanding, that sort of stuff. So I definitely see a lot of organizations wanting to do that, but I don't see all organizations. I don't know what lots of other organizations are doing. But we're also following, how does the popularity of behavior-driven development, which is sort of my little pond, how is that evolving in popularity over the years? And it seems to be increasing in popularity based on the downloads of tools like Cucumber and book sales and conference topics and so on. Yes. So what are the changes that we are doing in Cucumber? So this is what we hope to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months. And somebody watches this video in 18 months and probably going to say, when are you going to be done with this? But anyway, this is our aspiration. Very soon we're going to introduce a new keyword to Gherkin, which is the first change to Gherkin in 9 years or so, which is called rule. So it's a keyword that allows you to organize your scenarios or examples under rules. And this is to align it more with the example mapping technique, which has become popular as a way to build a common understanding between business and IT. Another thing we are doing is, or at least planning to do shortly after that, is to add support for alternative syntaxes to Gherkin. So given when then is great, right? But there are lots of domains where it's awkward to express examples as given when then. Finance, for example. What are the kind of tools that people in finance use? Banks, trading companies, and so on. They use Excel. They use tables. And guess where Cucumber came from, where it drew its biggest inspiration from. It was from FIT, Ward Cunningham's FIT, which is tables. And that's another baby that got thrown up by the bathwater at some point. So actually, I'm going to save two babies. So I'm going to try and bring the tables back, but not embedded inside of Gherkin, just standalone tables, and let people write tests in that format. And also Markdown. Markdown has become, almost the lingua franca of sort of rich text in plain text. And there are already tools out there that let you write automated acceptance tests in Markdown, like ThoughtWorks' Gauge. And I think that's a great idea, and that's something we want to build into Cucumber as well. What else? We're going to work on the reporting engines to make it easier for people to get nice reports out of their runs. So those are the big things we're planning on. So what are the benefits you get from thinking about the desired outcomes before you start to code? Well, I think of it a bit like having a map. If you want to get somewhere, first thing you want to know is where do you want to get to, right? I'm at CodeNode today. I knew I needed to go to CodeNode because this is where the conference is. And then I sort of I used Google Maps and drew a trajectory for me. I just hopped on the bus. And I think in software development it's similar. We need to know where we want to get to before we start on our journey. And I think if you don't spend enough effort doing that, you're going to end up in the wrong place, right? And how do you figure out where you need to go? Well, you need to talk to people who are not necessarily programmers, and the people who work for the business, who understand more about what the business goals are. They also need to talk to the programmers. And I say talk because you can't just put stuff in a Jira ticket and expect somebody to have understood exactly all of the details. So I think, the benefit is that you align on a vision, you have a shared understanding of where you want to get to before you start on your journey. That's the main benefit. It's just less rework and less frustration. Right, so if you manage to make your test suite super fast, and by super fast I mean, you can run hundreds of tests in a second, what are you going to do in that spare time? Well, you can refactor your code, clean up your mess, which is very difficult to do in a scenario where you have to wait a minute or 10 minutes or sometimes hours, right? Programmers who are in that sort of context, they almost inevitably end up with a big ball of mud, even if they have the best intentions, because they just don't have fast enough feedback loops to be able to improve the internal quality of their code. So, if you've got a fast test suite, you can improve your code, so it's easier to maintain, easier to understand. And also, you do less task switching because you don't have that 90 seconds of waiting time where you go and look at email or Hacker News or do something else. So what can you do in that time? Well, you can be creative. You can really get in the zone and think about the problem rather than having this sort of scatterbrain where you're trying to do too many things at the same time. You can get in the zone. Any other projects that people could help out with? Well, this is just something that I found incredibly fascinating, which isn't really related to any of the stuff that we've talked about. There's something out there called, we're going to backtrack a little bit. People are going to be working more and more remotely, and which means people are going to have less time face to face. As that just seems to be the way the world is heading in our industry, and that means we need new tools to be able to collaborate efficiently remotely. And everybody's probably used Google Docs. It lets you sit and type in the same document at the same time, but those are proprietary tools. It's very hard to make those kind of tools if you don't have a big engineering division that can put all the effort into creating those sorts of tools. And in the past few years, there's been some really interesting development in a space called CRDTs, which stands for Commutative Replicated Data Types, which essentially it's basically similar technology that is behind Google Docs, but you can use it for anything. You could create a graphical editor using this technology, and what it does is it's a bit like Git, but with automatic conflict resolution, and also allows you to work offline. And I've been playing a lot with a tool called AutoMerge, which implements some of these algorithms. Because I'm interested in making collaboration tools. And this is a very, very interesting field that is just in its infancy. So I don't know. I think it's incredibly interesting. Maybe you do. Well, I was really impressed by Simon Brown's presentation about, I can't remember the title now, but it was about the, doing modeling and doing a bit of design up front, which is kind of like swearing in the church, right? But I think we need more proverbial swearing in the church to challenge people's ideas and conventional wisdom. And I think that's the kind of stuff that you get at this conference, where people say unconventional things that might be a bit unheard of, but then people go and think about it as, actually, maybe that's not such a bad idea. And Goiko, talking about really, really fast feedback loops. And we all know fast feedback loops are important, but at the same time, you go and see what people are having to deal with, what sort of technologies they are trapped dealing with. People have slow feedback loops. So it's important to be reminded of some of these really important things that can change the way we're doing things. And the people who come to speak at this conference, I think, are the kind of people who have unconventional ideas about how to change things.